our district mission, or all districts have the same mission, which is we build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. And that is why we have Lance Miller here to tell us a little bit about how we can retain members, how past members can, why they should renew, why anyone should renew in the next renewal period. Lance is an award-winning speaker and trainer. He has delivered over 5,000 presentations in more than 60 countries on executive communication, leadership, and effective management principles. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, Lance Miller is the 2005 World Champion of Public Speaking. He shares perspective of having lived life. Yeah, he's lived life. Why? Because he's been to a top of the mountain, 14,000 feet. Lance, I beat you to it by 5,000, some 5,000 feet. I went to Mount Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
19,340 feet. However, Lance beats me in he's roughly the roughest whitewater in the US, sailed transatlantic from the Virgin Islands to Norway. Oh my goodness. This guy is an adventurer and piloted his own aircraft hundreds of hours across the US. My son is a pilot. Scuba dived under the ice of frozen lakes and twice hitchhiked throughout Europe. However, before I ask Lance to speak, I would like to ask our district director, Myrna Barth, to please come on and tell us and welcome you all. So Myrna, all yours.
Thank you very much, Brahm. Welcome, Lance, and welcome all comers to District 86's event this evening. The evening that we're going to be having is going to be exciting. Lance is always an animated presenter, has lots of humor, and has lots of good advice. So I would listen to his advice, take it back to your district, see what you can do with it. And I'm sure that what our objective here is to bring back older and unrenewed members to our clubs. I'm hoping that this will be a great time for them to do so. Thank you very much, Brahm.
Thank you, Myrna. So now, ladies and gentlemen, you've all been waiting for this for days on end, I know, so I won't delay it anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, Toastmaster, an internship for success, Lance Miller, all yours.
Well, thank you, Brahm, and it is great to be back with District 86 and District 60 and that whole area in Canada, because as we were discussing before we started here before the event, the seminar, that is where I won the World Championship. So it's always a very warm place in my heart in Toronto. And I have actually made many trips to District 86 and 60 and I think 61 and all through that area. A lot of good friends, a lot of great times back with you folks. Hey, I want to take just a little different look at Toastmasters. Maybe it's different for you. It is really how over the last 30 years of being in Toastmasters, I've sort of evolved to looking at it in a different light. When I first joined, and I would probably say my first tip for you is how I wound up joining Toastmasters, and it's a great membership building tip. I had a friend of mine ask me to join the club. Not only did he ask me to join the club, he asked me to join the club 8 times. And I went to the meeting for 2 reasons. One, he was so enthusiastic about this Toastmasters club that he had. And he kept, every week I'd see him, he'd go, "We had so much fun. I wish you were there." He didn't walk up to me and say, "Lance, you're such a horrible speaker. You need to join Toastmasters." That wasn't the selling point. The point was he was having fun and he wanted me to join him in the fun. And so I went to the meeting for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to see what it was that my friend Glenn was so excited about. And the second reason I went is I knew he wasn't going to stop asking me until I went to the club. And I wanted him to quit asking me to come to the club. So I went to the club so that I saw it, Glenn. I'm not interested in it. That's fine. I saw it, but I went to the Toastmasters club and it was different than what I realized. It was different. It was different than what I imagined it would be like. And just for those of you on the call, how many here didn't really understand what Toastmasters was until you went to a meeting and experienced it? So see, most of the hands go up. And I think that's one of the key things. People don't know what Toastmasters is. It's like you've never tasted pizza. And somebody says, you got to eat pizza. And you go, you don't know what it tastes like. You don't know if it's good. You don't know if it's bad. You have to experience it to understand what it is. And that's one of the components in building a club that I talk about, is just getting people to come experience the meeting, and they see that it is, like I did, it was a fun place. It was a friendly place. And quite honestly, I joined Toastmasters because it looked like a fun thing to do. I was doing a little bit of speaking, and I wanted to do more speaking, and it was going to give me a chance to have an audience to listen to me. A lot of people join so they can develop their skills. I wanted to develop my skills, but I thought, great, I'll have an audience to listen to me. And then after about 3 speeches, I realized how much growth I needed to have from that standpoint. But I joined it because it looked like it was going to be a fun thing to do. It was a fun group of people. And that was really my viewpoint. It's fun. And I want to share with you, that's a really critical component in building a club, keeping membership, retaining, getting members to come back. We're a voluntary organization. And if it's not fun, people are going to do something else. And this is a lesson we've learned in my club. And if you don't, you may know the story behind Renaissance Speakers is my home club. Back in the 90s, we had about 35. When I joined, we had about 35 people in the club. It was 92. About 6 months later, we had 12 coming to a meeting. And one day, 5 of us showed up. And we had something we call in the United States coffee. Okay. I think you can go to Tim Hortons, I guess, in Canada. But anyway, we sat down and had coffee. We didn't have a meeting. And we're trying to decide if we're going to keep the club or close the club. And at that meeting, we decided to build the club to be a top 10 club in Toastmasters, which Toastmasters used to rank us internationally with the old Distinguished Club program. And we were like 7,000 something in the world at the time. But what we did, we had to figure out how to activate the other members. And this is one of the things I want to share with you, is we actually did this amazing thing. We called them on the phone. We split up the membership and we called the members and talked to them. And we had a couple questions we asked, but we wanted to find out what it was they enjoyed about coming to the meeting, because they weren't coming to the meeting anymore. We didn't ask, why aren't you coming to the meeting anymore? We said, what is it you like about the club? And the number one thing they told us that they liked about the club was they like to have fun. And the number 2 reason they liked the club is they like to see their friends. And the number 3 reason that came up is they wanted the improvement of speaking and leadership that Toastmasters offered. And we realized immediately why we were having problems with our club. We weren't fun and friendly anymore. We had 2 presidents in a row that were not fun and friendly. One of them was very draconian, all of his management, his leadership. He was fining people, and he made speech evaluation pass fail. And so if you didn't feel the speaker passed it, they had to redo the speech until they got it right, and then they could go on to the next level. So we would have people doing icebreakers 2 and 3 times until they got their icebreaker right, and they could go on to the next speech. And this isn't Toastmasters at all. And we had people quitting the club and all sorts of stuff. And anyway, it wasn't fun and friendly, and that's why our membership was dying. And we actually wrote a policy, which we have our own club policies that we write. And the number 1 policy in our club is we have to maintain a fun, friendly environment, because we see as soon as the fun comes out of the club, members stop coming. So that was the one thing. But I joined, it looked like a fun activity. And now, having been in Toastmasters for 30 years this year, and I look at what it's done to my life, I realized that what Toastmasters is for me is a little bit like going to the gym. And if you've ever been out of shape and you said, okay, this January, I'm going to get back in shape. So you join a gym, and you know that if you're going to get in shape, you have to go to the gym regularly. You can't go once every 6 months. You got to go regularly. And I see this with people in Toastmasters where they will come in and do their icebreaker, and they're so nervous. And let's compare nervousness now to being sore after you exercise. Like you haven't exercised in 5 years. You go, okay, I want to get in shape. I'm going to lose 20 pounds, get in shape. and you go to the gym one day and the next day you're so sore you can't hardly walk down the hallway of your house. And if you said, I'm so sore, I'm not going back to the gym for 6 months, how are you going to feel in 6 months? You're going to start all over again because you lost all the gain you got going to the gym one day. And you know that if you're going to go to the gym, you got to go like 3 times a week. And after about 3 weeks, your soreness is going to come out. You're going to start feeling your muscles getting stronger, and you're going to start building those muscles. Well, the same thing's true with Toastmasters. You come in and you're asked to speak and you're so nervous. I hear people go, I'm just so nervous, I'm not going to speak for 6 months. You just lost all the gain you got from doing that one speech. You don't want to do table topics. People don't want to step up and coach somebody, or they don't want to be the table topics master or participate in the meeting. They're hesitant. Well, the fact is, these are the muscles we need to build. And these are speaking muscles. They're leadership muscles. There's a whole array of soft skills that we learn in Toastmasters. And I want to share, I just put this slide together about 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to share it with you here real quick. This isn't what I go over. I talk about what is the personal development we actually get. And I think there's 4 primary areas of personal development. And the reason I want to bring this up to you right now is that I think to the degree that we actually get a person to develop these skills is to the degree they're going to get the benefit out of Toastmasters, and they're going to see the value in Toastmasters. And Toastmasters is like anything else in life. If we're not getting benefit from it, if we're not getting value out of it, we're going to go find something that we're going to get benefit and value out of. So the first area of development is our communication. There we go. Is communication. We learn this through preparing speeches. But I will tell you, I have probably gained as much in my life in knowing how to answer an unexpected question from table topics as I have from learning how to be a professional speaker and a competent public speaker. In the business world, in handling difficult situations, table topics has served me as a soft skill phenomenally well. And don't underestimate that. That is a very needed skill that we need out in the world. We have, being a Toastmaster, you learn communication in front of a group and how to introduce people and how to handle things when don't expect it. You learn listening skills by being, we call it speech. We don't call it speech evaluation in my club. I have coaching on here. Nobody hires a speech evaluator. They hire a speech coach. And so our idea in our club is we want to coach you to be a more competent individual. I can evaluate you and I can tell you that your hair's messed up and you're overweight. And I didn't do any good at all, but I did evaluate you. The idea is to coach a person to be more competent at what they're doing. So speech coaching, you learn to listen. You really have to listen and watch. And as a general evaluator, you have to listen and watch the whole meeting. And as the functionaries, we never hear an awe until we're awe counter. And then you're the awe counter, and now you hear awes, you get whiplash. The grammarian, you have to sit there and listen for great uses of language or incorrect uses. It teaches us to listen in these little baby steps of communication. Even the timing enhances our ability to watch a speech and see how the words are fitting into the time. Okay, so these are soft skills that we're developing to be more successful. And one of the key things I'll get, this isn't about being successful as a Toastmaster, it's about being successful in life, but using Toastmasters to be successful in life. The second area of personal development or soft skills is in coaching. And this is in giving effective feedback to people to make them more competent. And in my life in the business world, a lot of what I do is I train people one-on-one. I'm working with them and I'm sitting down and we're trying to figure out how to make the person more proficient at what they're doing without firing them and get somebody else. The coaching skills I've learned in Toastmasters have served me phenomenally well in life. So you learn coaching skills again by being the speech coach, by being a general evaluator, and by being a functionary. Because a functionary, you still have to report on the aspects of how the person, the all counter, the grammarian, you're still giving people feedback on that. And if I know in my life, and I think the same is probably true with you, if you look at the people that really impacted your life a lot, it's probably people that helped you become better at something. And I think this is really one of the final products we get as Toastmasters, is not an individual who themselves is a competent speaker or a competent leader, but an individual who can create in another person, can help another person to be a competent leader and a competent speaker. That's the real final product of the Toastmasters program. The next area is effective meeting management. You learn this by being the Toastmaster, running the meeting. You learn this by being the general evaluator, evaluating the meeting. You learn this by being a table topics master, because you have to run a small portion of the meeting. And you learn this by being a functionary, because you have to keep the timing. You have to watch how, again, different aspects of the meeting go. And so the functionary roles are little tiny baby steps in each one of this area of personal development. Typically, people hate going to meetings. And I'll tell you, I have a lot of meetings that I run, and people love coming to my meetings. But why? Well, I get to the room early. I straighten the chairs up around the table. I put a bottle of water out. I have an agenda. The room's cleaned up. I'm at the front door to greet the people when they come in. I tell them where to sit. We run the meeting on an agenda. It starts on time, it runs on time, and it ends on time, or it ends early. They're productive meetings. And I have people saying, man, I will come to your meetings anytime. They love to come to them. Most meetings are a complete dog's breakfast. They don't start on time, they don't run on time, and everything in the middle is a waste of time. And in Toastmasters, we learn how to run an effective meeting. And this is an extremely important soft skill to learn to be more successful in life. And the last area is our leadership development. We learn to be a leadership by a club officer. We learn to lead the meeting by being the Toastmaster. We learn to evaluate the leadership and figure out how that meeting could have worked better by being the general evaluator. Again, as a table topics master, we're running a little tiny portion of the meeting, so we get to get our feet wet. And the functionaries, we contribute to the meeting management, or the leadership, excuse me. And the overall product we're getting to is we're learning how to be a team member. And this is something that is not taught in life, is how to be an effective team member. And one of the things I see with a lot of what seems to be younger generations, we have a lot of individuation. We have a lot of people who are, sort of a me-oriented world. And what does it really mean if you have a job and you got to show up on time? And if you don't, it creates a problem for people. These are all soft skills that people need to succeed in life. And we can get wrapped up in getting our distinguished club points, which we should get, and getting our education goals met, which we should meet. But the bottom line on it is what we're doing is we're enhancing a person's life so that they can be more successful in their life, and they have the ability to go out and interact with confidence in society. And there's times I talk about Toastmasters, and I said, we're a little bit like church. We revive the dead. And what do I mean by that? Well, we see people come into Toastmasters, and there's those little huddled shell of a person that can hardly answer a question. And 6 months later, we can't shut them up. They're more alive than you've ever seen them. And we do. We bring people back to life, and we've all seen that. And this is an amazing program, and it's a program that almost every human being on planet Earth needs. And we can deliver that to them. So when we come into Toastmasters, and we need to be improved. We need to get these soft skills. For me, I stayed in Toastmasters because I need to continue to give back and help other people attain what I got out of the organization. Quite honestly, that's why I'm talking to you tonight. I know, Bram said he would send me a check. It would be a big check, and it would have a lot of zeros in it. Okay, so I'm looking forward to that, Bram. A check with a lot of zeros in it. So you know why I'm here. But I do what I do primarily because I want to continue to enhance others getting out of this program what I got out of it. My life, I don't know what path my life would have had if I hadn't joined Toastmasters, but in building my club, the answer to, I was telling you, we wanted to be a top 10 club in 1999. We started in 1995. In 1999, we were the number 4 club in Toastmasters. We had 95 members. We had 57 education completions that year. It's a huge win for the whole club. And but in building that club, I learned how to work with people. I learned how to manage people through inspiration and motivation instead of invalidation and nullification, as I'd been taught. And I learned the importance of figuring out things for myself and coming up with solutions that weren't in the book. Because in order to build the club, we had to go way beyond what the Toastmasters manual was. The Toastmasters manuals gave us the basic tools to work with, but they didn't give us the fine-tuning aspects that we needed to keep our club winning and keep each and every member advancing in the club. And what built the club, quite honestly, and this is why I want to come back to how do you retain members? How do you keep them? We were having this struggling time when our club, and when we wanted to be a top 10 club, we went to every member and we needed them to complete a speaking level every year because we wanted the points. So the 5 of us put this little plan together, and then we get the club to buy off on it. Not everybody wanted to do it, but we started. We got enough mass in the club, enough people that were willing to do it. So we went to everybody and said, complete a speaking level every year, so we got the points and we could go up on the rankings. Here's what surprised me, and this is why I'm so adamant about this whole concept of personal growth in Toastmasters. We asked people to do 10 speeches a year. And as I said, we did it because we wanted to get the points for the club. But what happened was when they started speaking frequently, they started keeping the gain from each speech they made, and they started getting better and better, and their life changed. And they became more competent, and they became more confident. And they got what I call the twinkle in the eye in Toastmasters, and the spring in the step, and they carried themselves different. And they stood up and they were commanding the stage, and they became enthusiastic about Toastmasters because it had changed their life. And then they got their friends and they dragged them in by the head of the hair and sat them in the chair and said, "You got to see this club. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen." And once we got our members winning, they started bringing members to the club because they were so enthusiastic about the club. That's really how we built the club. We did a lot of events, we did a lot of activity, but what really built it was getting that individual member to win with Toastmasters. Now, I'm president of my club this year for the 3rd time. And I'll be honest, I didn't really raise my hand and say, I want to be president of the club for the 3rd time. My club's not 95 members now. We were up well into probably over 80 members until about 2010. And clubs have a life of their own. I'd won the world championship. I was traveling around the world speaking. I wasn't at the club very often. Roberta Perry, who's one of the founders, many of you may know Roberta. She's a past international director, and she's been in Toastmasters a long time. She doesn't want me to say. And she's formed over 100 clubs. Phenomenal lady. She was an international director, and she was out of the club. And so we had a lot of the key people in the club who weren't there, and the new people that came in. And this is a thing to understand about Toastmasters clubs, didn't realize the work we did to create an 80-member club, 80 plus members. So they were running on the inertia that had been created. And what happened is our club started dropping down. We're still considered a strong club. I think we're 35 members now. And last year we were number 31 in the world for training achievement. So I think we've been probably a top 50 club in Toastmasters for the last 25 years, something like that. So it's a very strong club that I have, but we're not 95 members. But I came in as president this year because we needed to have somebody. Roberta was president last year. I said, okay, I'll step back in and we're going to run this. We want to continue to build it up. I'd like to get us up to 45 members this year, because I think a good, strong club is 40 to 60 members. To me, that's what a good club is. And that gives you a lot of dynamic personality, a lot of people to speak. It's a little hard. We have a 3-hour meeting also, just so you know. So it's not a 1-hour meeting. Braun came to our meeting for a couple hours. I think we warmed down on Sunday. He couldn't stay the whole 3 hours.
I had to leave. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
2 hours.
But I want to let you know what I did this year. We had 2 things that hit this year or last year that were new for Toastmasters. One of them was COVID, and that totally spun us out. Now we're all meeting virtually. And the other one was Pathways, because we had a training program that we had for years and we knew it. And we have this new program, and there have been a number of issues with Pathways that are getting worked out. I'm not here to do a Pathways presentation. It's what we have, and it's what we need to use. and I'm working on my 4th level 5 right now. I can't tell you how proud I am to tell people that I'm a level 5 in Toastmasters. So on that, that's all I'm going to say about it. But what happened in the club is that we had a club culture that we wanted every member to do a speaking level every year. Now, a speaking level was 10 speeches. So it was really easy to go do a speaking level, and they do their 10 speeches, and then we figure that out, and we always kept our points going really high and the education achievement going. We kept our members winning with Toastmasters because we were working on that. Pathways threw a wrench in that because you can't do just 10 speeches because every level's different speeches, and can you get through a level 2 or where are you on it? So what I did, again, one of the big things I've learned in Toastmasters, which I never learned in school, was how to figure things out for myself. See, I went to school for 12 years and then another 4, so for 16 years, and I got to study what other people figured out. And in school, they never taught me to figure it out for myself, study what somebody else figured out. So I looked at the club and I said, I want everybody to get the benefit of the Toastmasters program this year. Now, what is the benefit? Well, I went over the personal development, communication, coaching, meeting management, and leadership. I want them to develop those soft skills in the club this year. So I called and emailed each member individually. I didn't send out some blast talking to everybody. I called each one of them individually and talked to them. And I put together a program called a Competent Renaissance Speaker. And what it consists of is 10 speeches, 10 coaching times. So you give feedback, you do your speech evaluator 10 times. The 5 functionaries once each, so timer, ballot counter, grammarian, all counter. We have what's called a chuckle master. You have to tell a joke. And then your Toastmaster, general evaluator, and table topics once. So that's 28 meeting assignments for the year. And I talked to every member and I said, I want you to get the benefit out of Toastmasters. And the way you get the benefit out of Toastmasters is to do the program. And I had all the members in my club except one agree to do it. And there's always one anyway. And because of that, our meetings are filling up and people are pushing themselves to get through. They agreed that they would do 10 speeches. I don't care where they land in pathways. They may be a level 1.5 by the time they're done. I don't care. I just want them to do 10 speeches. So they do 10 speeches, they're going to get the benefit of speaking. I want them to coach 10 times. Why? Because if they coach 10 times, they're going to become a more competent coach. I want them to be the functionaries so that they learn to listen and they contribute to the meeting. I want them to run the meeting so they get their meeting management skills in and they get their leadership skills in on those components. And so I put that in. And I will also share with you, I had a couple older members that were very adamant that they did not like the Pathways program. And I had 4 members that did not want to speak anymore because they had to do it in Pathways. And these are very valuable members in my club. And they contribute tremendous amounts of knowledge and experience to the younger members. They're wonderful coaches, and they were feeling somewhat disaffected in some way because they weren't, they weren't in, in harmony with Pathways. So the deal I made out with them was I said, look, I want you to get the benefit of the Toastmasters program. Why don't you speak out of the Competent Communicator Manual? We'll count your speeches as Pathways program. Just work with the Vice President of Education. I want you contributing to the club. I want you benefiting from it. And they were thrilled to have that option given to them. Now, there's probably people at Toastmasters International that wouldn't appreciate that. But the thing is, I know that Toastmasters lives and dies at the club level. If you think about it, if all the clubs had 70 members in them and we're getting 60 of those through an education level every year, we wouldn't have any problems at the district level because everybody would be winning with Toastmasters. We live and die at the club level. And I know the club lives and dies with the benefit that the individual member receives from the club experience. So if I'm going to have a strong club, I have to make sure every one of my members is getting the benefit of Toastmasters, and they get the benefit by doing the program. It's that simple. I want to give you 3 reasons clubs fail. I have stories behind all these, and we're about at a half an hour mark right now. The first reason I've seen that clubs fail The reason my club was failing back in 1993 when we decided to start turning it around, took a year to get it reverting, okay? But the reason that my club was failing was that nobody owned the club. And what do I mean by that? Nobody owns the club. When you have a business, somebody owns it. So when there's a problem, somebody solves the problem or the business is going to go out of business. In a club, we come into a club, at least I think I did this, and when I do my live seminars, most people give me feedback. That's what happened to them. You come in the club looking at the members of the club and you say, they're more advanced than I am. I'm going to learn from them. So you don't usually come in the club saying, I want to be the CEO of a new nonprofit, voluntary club in the community, and I'm going to build it up to be a international phenomenon. That's usually not what we do when we join Toastmasters. We're wanting to develop our skills. We say, those people are ahead of me in the program. I'm going to follow them. So when there's a problem, we go, somebody should do something about it. When we don't have new membership, we go, we need more members. Somebody should do something about it. When people aren't showing up and doing their speeches, somebody should do something about it. We're not saying I should do something about it. And this is what I call an SEP. If you're familiar with Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, an SEP is somebody else's problem. And a lot of times in their clubs, everybody's got the viewpoint, and I experience this, that there's a problem, but it's somebody else's problem. I don't have to solve it. And what turned my club around is when the 5 of us agreed to own the club. We didn't really say we're going to own it, but that's really what happened. We took responsibility to start growing the club. The only reason my club has been out here for 34 years now is because we won't let it fail. We've had plenty of opportunities that could have gone down, but we won't let it fail. There are people in the club, myself included, that will not let the club fail. We get it turned around. The number 2 reason that clubs fail is people don't do the program. They come to Toastmasters and they're not participating in the Toastmasters program, which is speaking, coaching, being a functionary, meeting roles, and being an officer. If you do those things, you're going to develop your skills. If you do them. Now, you can become an officer and not do it, and you're going to have a horrible experience. But if you become an officer and actually do the program and wear the hat that the officer is supposed to wear, be the vice president of public relations, and do the things to get the guests to come in, and you're going to take a win on developing those skills, you enhance yourself because you did the program. Now, as I said, I got a story for everything. So I had a friend of mine who wanted to lose 50 pounds about 5 or 6 years ago, and he joined Weight Watchers. Saw him about 6 months later, he hadn't lost any weight. And I said, what happened? He goes, oh, it didn't work. I saw him about 3 months ago. He lost the weight. I said, what'd you do? He goes, I joined Weight Watchers. So I thought that didn't work. He goes, no, this time I did the program. And that's a pretty good analogy to Toastmasters. He went to the meetings before and got weighed in, but he was eating anything he wanted, right? Well, there's a lot of people that come to Toastmasters and sit in the Toastmasters meeting, but they're not doing the program. You do the program, you're going to improve, okay? So that's a simple thing. The third reason the clubs fail is they don't promote. Now, I don't say they don't promote effectively. No, they don't even promote. They sit around. Their membership program consists of holding hands and singing Kumbaya in August for the Smedley Award and visualizing new members. That's about as much promotion as they do. You go out and talk to people and just have a party. And I have a whole program on my website for how to promote and market a club. I got an audio download, and I got tips cards here on running clubs and speech evaluation. You can download for free. LanceMillerspeaks.com. I'll put it in the chat. But there's a number of ways to promote the club, but you should have parties. You should invite people in, have special events in the club. You should create things to remember I started off with, we didn't know what Toastmasters was. It was like pizza. We never taste pizza. We never tasted Toastmasters. You got to get people to come try the program. And once they come and try it and taste it, they go, oh, it actually tastes pretty good. I think I'd like this. And if they don't, next, and get somebody else to come in. So the 3 reasons clubs fail: nobody owns the club, they don't do the program, you don't promote. What's kept my club alive? We own the club, we get people to do the program, and we promote as much as we can. Okay, so that's sort of it in a nutshell. Now let's break this out and see what we can do to take some personal questions and address some specific issues that the audience has. You're muted, Bram. I hear you. I see your lips moving, but. Well, let's just say, I say Jimmy Chen from District 86, your hand's up. Why don't you go ahead and ask the question?
Good evening. Thank you for your talk. I enjoyed it tremendously. I have a question for you. I believe there's a school of thought that said, let the member decide how he or she'd like to proceed. There's no reason to force people or give them a schedule. And so they work better that way. And I don't think I expressed myself well enough, but I think you know what I'm talking about. There's a structure of scheduling people in. There's also a sign-up approach. So what do you think of both? And the sign-up approach, how can one improve sign-up rate on that self-sign-up approach?
Okay, so let me just address that. You're in a program, and there needs to be some structure, and there needs to be some expectations in the program. And to just say you can come in and do whatever you want, it's not going to work. It's not going to work very well unless you just have a lot of type A type individuals that, you know, they just grab things. I mean, I did my first competent communicator. I joined in December, and I had my first competent communicator done by June, because they said, oh, we need to have one more, the CTM back then. They said CTM by June, and we need someone that can do that. I said, well, I've got 4 speeches. I'll do it. That's not a problem. But most people weren't jumping in like that. You need some structure. Now, as an example, I think in my club, we used to run a 6-week schedule, and we needed the 6-week schedule, and you were assigned when you were going to speak. Then if you couldn't, you had to work out getting a replacement. But we had a 6-week schedule we ran, and people were assigned to be Toastmaster, general evaluator, et cetera. Right now, because of going online and how much things shifted, we do it a week at a time. But what I did was, as I shared, I went to every member and said, I want you to do 10 speeches, and I want you to coach 10 times. I want you to be Toastmaster, general evaluator, table topics master, the 5 functionaries. So I put a program together for them to actually achieve what they needed. But people have to understand, if they're going to be in Toastmasters, you got to step up and be in the meeting. It's like you're going to be on a baseball team, and you're going to come and sit in the dugout. And there's 7 players out there, and there need to be 9. And I can't get anybody out of the dugout to go out and play the game. If you're in Toastmasters, you're coming to these meetings, you need to take a role, because it's to your benefit, and it's to the other members' benefit, and it's to the club's benefit if you do it. So the idea of just allowing someone to originate on their own 100% what they're going to do, I think there needs to be some structure to it to get them to move through, so they can actually confront their incompetencies. You know, it's interesting, you know, communication through our life has been a pretty hot subject. I mean, when we were little kids, our parents are telling us to be quiet. We say things in school that were stupid, or our friends laughed at us, or we did say something that was ridiculous, or we said something we didn't mean. Other people have, you know, they've yelled at us, and, you know, communication becomes a dangerous thing. And so then you bring people into Toastmasters and you say, stand up and give a speech, you know, and it can be, you know, it's like sort of promoting free bungee jumping. It's not exactly what everybody wants to go do. And so I think we need enough structure in it that you get somebody to move through that. Now, that's a little bit of a long question, long answer to your question, but great. Schedule them, have them sign up, but have a program that they've agreed to do, so they move through the program.
Thank you.
Super. The next 2 questions that I think you can answer in one shot. Are you thinking of competing again, and where can they find your winning speech?
Competing again. First of all, one of the biggest reliefs I had in my life was after 13 years of competing in the international speech competition, finally winning it. You're not allowed to compete again. Okay, so and it's a great system, because if we did, we'd have 10 speakers in Toastmasters that were the top Toastmaster speakers, and nobody else could get the development of going up those levels if we allowed people to continue to compete. to answer your question, I had won every speech contest in my district except the humorous speech contest. And so 2 years ago, I competed in the humorous speech competition and won that so that I could at least have a full quadfecta or whatever it was on having all the speech contests having won at the district level. And you can find my speech on my website, lancemillerspeaks.com, or just Google Lance Miller Toastmasters, and if you haven't seen it, well, your life will be the same until you do. So.
Awesome. The next question is by Conrad. Conrad, go ahead and ask your question. You're muted.
Oh, sure. Thanks so much, Lance. It's a real pleasure listening to you. I belong to a club that has a culture of fun and excellence. And now we raise that at every meeting. We talk about it. And I must say it works very well for the club. But in some situations, I wonder about it. For example, in the evaluation, right? It embodies fun, but sometimes a whitewash rather than excellence. So how can you draw a line from being too much fun and not enough excellence? Sort of a balance.
Good
like
question.
Your views.
Yeah, good question. Let me address that just a little bit. There's a difference between fun and funny. First of all, fun is productive. Fun is growing. If you look at what's really fun, improving is fun. Being productive is fun. Having things work properly is fun. And you have a lightness about what you're doing. But we've had people in the club that just tried to be funny all the time, and that is not always productive. And with what you're talking with speech evaluation, we take part of your club culture, and this is what we developed in my club, was excellent speech evaluation. We used to watch, we had a group of us that we would, as we were evaluating speeches, we would try to outdo each other with the excellence of our speech evaluation, with really identifying what the person needed to do to improve their speaking and not just whitewashing them. And this is it's a difficult, speech evaluation is probably the most difficult skill set we learn in Toastmasters, because you have to know what the speech should be, see what it isn't, see what you need to do to move it to make it what it should be, put a speech together that's 3 minutes in length, give it to the audience and the speaker, and inspire them to do better in life. That's a big challenge. But one of the things I would talk about is that I think it's the role of the president primarily, and the vice president of education. If you have people whitewashing speeches, I would talk to them personally afterwards. And if you have specific people, which this has happened, we have specific people that aren't doing a good job of speech evaluation. As VPE or as a senior member, I would talk to them sometimes and say, do you want me to work with you on your speech evaluation? Would you like some help? So they know what's going on. You evaluate the speech, and I'm going to evaluate the speech. Then afterwards, let's get together personally, quietly on the side. You don't want to do it in front of the club. And let's look at what I saw in the speech and what you saw in the speech, because I want to help you be a better evaluator. I've done that with a number of people where I would evaluate, they would evaluate, then I would get with them and show them my evaluation and show them what they missed in the evaluation. The other thing is, if you have something where somebody sort of goes off the rails, towards the end of the meeting as president, you got to put the meeting back on the rails. So if and I usually would never call anybody out in the meeting at all, but I make a general statement that one of the things we pride ourselves on is excellent speech evaluation. We had some great speech evaluation today, and we always want to make sure we're working to be the best evaluators we can be, just so that you're reinforcing that component. And it's not about being funny. And I've been to 80 districts multiple times, and I have seen so many district competitions, and I've seen district speech evaluation competitions that I thought were humorous speech competitions. Then the district, it was who could be the funniest evaluator was the one that won. And you're doing a huge disservice to the membership and to the individual being evaluated when you do that. I hope that gives you some focus or some tools to work with on that concept. But very good point. I've seen that over and over in clubs.
Wonderful. Thank you. Before we bring the next speaker on, RJ, can you put your video on? I'd like to ask you a question myself, is how often should one get stage time to speak?
I think for me, it's a minimum of 10 times a year, but it depends on how many speakers there are. There's a whole formula we can look at very simply. How many, if you meet once a week, let's just do some simple math. You do once a week, you're basically going to have 50 meetings a year, 52 weeks in the year. You're going to have a couple weeks, elections or holidays, you're not going to meet. So let's say you have 50 meetings a year. And let's say that you have 4 speakers per meeting. So that's 200 speaking slots in your Toastmasters year. And so how many members do you have and how many do you need to fill each meeting up? You start to do the math on that, which we've done. But we try to get people to speak every 4 to 5 weeks. Is what we attempt to do.
Rule of thumb, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. RJ, your question.
Yeah, sure. So sure, like I said, I'm trying to build a club. And really it is, how do I get them? How do I entice them? New members, where am I looking for them? I know I've got about a month or so. And is there a quota on the timeline to get those 20 members?
I'm not sure on the quote and the timeline, just because I don't keep up to speed on Toastmaster International rules from that standpoint. Okay. Every club has its own culture and every club has its own sort of geographic area. Is this a corporate club, a community club? What type of club is it?
It'd probably be a community club. Yeah.
Okay. Community club. And every community, well, I'll give you some examples. Every club services a geographic area around it. If you're starting it virtually, that's a whole different ball game today, because like I have members from Bahrain and Florida and New York and Colorado in my club now, but when we had a physical meeting place, we serviced a geographic area. So there had to be somebody within that geographic area. So what I would do is if there were businesses down the street, I would go down and say, I'm starting a Toastmasters club. Do you know what that is? Talk to the manager or something and say, do you have any people in your business that need communication, leadership training and skills and development? You can, that's an area. I always say, I think you could build a Toastmasters club off going to McDonald's and getting the cashiers and going to the supermarket and getting the stock boys and going to the car wash and getting the guys that drive the cars, because they can't go to college or university and improve their life, but they can come to Toastmasters and they can learn to speak and lead and have a whole different career path on it. So it's probably getting a couple key people together. And then one of the things I've seen done too is having a party where you get 30 people together and you have a little mock Toastmasters meeting and a few things and show them what's going on and invite them to start the club. RJ, I have a audio lesson on I'm not trying to sell you anything, it's $20, but I have an audio lesson on my website on how to promote and market a club. It's got 6 ways to drive membership into a club, and all of them would work in getting members for a new club. But this is one of the things where you've got to figure it out for yourself. And I would say, let's just take it out of the Toastmasters context for a second. Let's say you're on a reality TV show where they say, okay, your assignment is to go start a communication leadership program. And whoever can put the leadership and communication program together in the next week, and they got 30 members in their program and they've got these people signed up, it's going to win $1 million. Or you get to stay on the show and you go, oh my God, I got to stay on the show. And these other people are, how am I going to do this? I'm going to get real smart. I'm going to figure out how can I do it? That was the attitude we took with my club when we wanted to build it to a top 10 club. That was the carrot we wanted was the top 10 club position in Toastmasters. So we were figuring out, how can we get more members? What can we do? How can we make the club better? Okay. And one of the things I feel in Toastmasters is that we should have more of an incentive program for building great clubs. I think we should have a world championship of leadership, just like we have a world championship of public speaking. And I've written a whole program up for TI, but that hasn't gone anywhere. But anyway, I hope that gives you some ideas. But the other thing I'm going to say, go to some of the top Toastmasters in your district area, people that have been very successful, pool them together, get some ideas, put a little mastermind together. But this is the brilliance of Toastmasters. It's just like I was talking about. Where else do you get to learn how to start something from scratch and make it successful? And you make this club successful, you now have a notch in your belt of success that you can go to a business, and this is what I did. You have increased confidence. And I figured out how to overcome those barriers. And that's what this game is about, is doing it. And And my recommendation is, yeah, make it a great success. And then you'll start to see more success in your life, and the members in your club will see more success in their life because they're a member of the club.
Thank you. Next is, sorry, go ahead, Lance. Did you finish?
Well done.
All right, Parveen, go ahead.
Hi, Lance. It was a great presentation. Thank you very much. A couple of questions. We find when there's a club with under 20 members, it's usually the same members that show up every week and take roles. There's a few members that don't turn up. How do you entice them?
How do you entice the members that aren't there to show up? Is that it?
Yeah.
Well, like I was saying, what we did, we got on the phone and called them. Here's one of the things I know, Pavi, and I know that most people have experienced more failure in their life than success, and they appreciate being appreciated. And most people can use more being loved in their life. And when we allow a member to not come to a meeting and we don't call them, we don't tell them we miss them, they think we don't care. And if people know that we care, they'll come to the meeting because they don't want to disappoint us. So there's a whole aspect, but it has to be real. It can't be fake. You got to actually like people. You got to actually care about the individual. But what we did, as I said, and this was years ago, we still do this. If we have a member that hasn't been to the club for 2 or 3 meetings, we'll call them and say, everybody's worried about you. Are you okay? Were you sick? No, I'm fine. Okay, well, we at the meeting, everybody was concerned. They hadn't seen you. You missed me? You knew I wasn't there? I mean, they're amazed that we recognize they weren't there. Okay. And so one of the things I would do is call them and maybe ask them, how's it going? You know, were you enjoying the Toastmasters? Did anything happen that upset you? Find out what's going on with them. You know, we miss you. Everybody enjoyed you at the club so much, and we miss you every week when you're not there. Do you think you could work back in? And that's why I talk about keeping it very light. You can't order people to come back to Toastmasters. You know, they'll give you one of those, right? You can't order them. So what you got to do is you got to love them back in. You got to care about them and tell them you miss them and you appreciate their input and you need some help, those types of things, and see if they'll come up to get activated again. The other thing I talk about, and this is a leadership concept that I work with a lot, is what I call the attainable goal. A lot of times we have a long-time goal. Let's just say we've got 10 members that I'm trying to get a member back permanently. Well, the attainable goal for the member is not to come back permanently. The attainable goal is to come to one meeting. They can attain coming to one meeting. That makes sense to you. So it's like, so when you say my goal for you, and you don't tell them this, my goal is to have you back as an active member in the club every meeting. I'm going to ask you, could you come to one meeting and help us out? That's one meeting they can come to. Oh, I can come to one meeting. I'm not committing for a lifetime. You're not asking me to marry you. I'm just coming to a meeting. All right, we're going out on a date. Okay, so can you just go to one meeting? And they come to the meeting and they have a good time. And what happens is they taste the pizza again. They go, it actually tastes pretty good. And now they're more inclined to come to another meeting. Oh, that was great. Could you help me on this one? Okay, yeah. You got them over the big hump of getting them back to the meeting. So my recommendation is try to get your members just to come to one meeting and join you again, and then take it from there.
So don't feed them an elephant.
Yeah. Don't get them to eat an elephant. No.
Thank you, Parveen. Anything else, Parveen?
And the other thing is the 28 roles, was that done over one calendar year of Toastmasters? So like every other week they're doing something.
28 roles. Yeah, that's 1 year.
Yeah,
1 year of Toastmasters.
I like that structure. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that gives more engagement, right, Lance?
Exactly. And to the
engagement
degree
is the game.
Yeah.
To the degree people are contributing to the meeting, they are engaged in the club and they feel that they're of value. And if they just come to the club and sit and they don't get to do anything, it becomes valueless to them.
Yeah. Super. We have a question from Ashok. I can't spotlight Ashok because his video is off. Ashok,
yes,
are you there?
Yes, I'm on camera now. Hello.
Okay, I'll spotlight you now that you are. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, Lance. Just a quick question. When you were talking about why clubs fail, you said that nobody owns the club, or nobody. Yeah, basically, you said nobody owns the club. So who would you say should own the club? Is it the founders or the club officers, or just anyone who's interested in running the club? Or
quite honestly, everybody should own the club. That's the ideal. Okay. Now, I'll just tell you, in my club, when we were structuring it, and I put an organizational program together on how everything works, what every officer contributes and things. And in that program, I put a past president's council. And this was all agreed to. But I said, listen, once you're president of the club, you have a responsibility to see that the successful actions of this club do not fall out of the club. Because in Toastmasters, it's real easy to get this roller coaster effect of leadership. We have one group that comes in and they do great, and then another group comes in and they think they know best, and they don't look at what the last group did, and the club dies, and then another group comes in and they get the club to come back up again. And what we needed to have regular growth from year to year, because we wanted to be a top 10 club. So we wanted to keep the successful actions in and not repeat the unsuccessful ones. So we really started watching what we did, and we started recording what was successful. And we started recording, and these were things, this is where like a fun meeting, and we'd have a meeting that would spin, and we'd have somebody that gave a really bad speech. I mean, I had a guy that got up and gave a speech to the club. He loved conspiracy theories, so he gave a speech that the Holocaust didn't occur. About half my club is Jewish, and I've been to funerals that had more life in them than the end of that meeting. And I had to return the meeting to fun and friendly at the end of that one. So you have things that happen. Trust me, 95 members is very little I haven't seen in Toastmasters. But what you want to do is, it says from one administration to the others, keep the successful actions in. So we have about 20 past presidents in my club, and we're all responsible to see that the club's there. But usually what you'll see is that I don't recommend one person, but there's usually 3 or 4 people in a club that will be the sort of the solid backing behind the executive committee. And they're sort of they're watching what's going on, making sure the president's on track with what was happening. And I'm one of those people in my club. Roberta Perry, the founder, is one of the people. Richard Stewart, who's one of the other founders, is one of those people. And we have about 5 others in it that watch the club and make sure that the club does not start to sink down and we get it reverted. We have problems in the club. We handle them immediately. We don't let them fester for long periods of time and stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But ideally, quite honestly, the perfect organization, which does not exist, is everybody would own the club. Everybody would take 100% responsibility. And I will share this with you. When we were building our club to be a top 10 club in May, if you've ever been vice president of education, in May, you're usually begging people to finish a speaking level so you can get your DCP points. And the vice president of education is like on the phone trying to get people to do it. And they're going, I don't really want to do it. I don't want to be pushed to do it. I want to do it when I want it. I have a tendency to just want to slap those people. But anyway, here's what happened to my club. The members are calling the vice president of education going, you haven't given me enough speaking slots to finish my CC. I'm not going to be responsible for this club not being a top 10 club. You find me speaking slots. We went to double meetings the second half of the year just to get all the speakers in because the membership was demanding to get through their speaking levels so we could win as a club. Okay. So that's where everybody was really starting to take responsibility to own the club.
Okay. And also a follow-up question to that is, do you see a difference in the way corporate clubs are run compared to community clubs, like in the way they do things?
That's a long question, but here's the thing. Corporate clubs are easy to start and easy to fail. So, and community clubs are harder to start and they're harder to fail. Okay, but yes, corporate clubs, you have to have, I would say you have to have the buy-off of like HR or upper management for them to really be successful, because you've got a person working at their desk and they have a proposal or they have a project they have to get out and they go, I'm going to go to Toastmasters for lunch, right? And their boss is going, what are you doing? It's like, I'm going to go to the knitting class that they're having down the hall, right? The boss doesn't necessarily any correlation between the development they're getting in Toastmasters and the project they got to get out the door. So it has to be bought off in the entire corporation that this is a valuable activity we want you to participate in, and that needs to be rewarded. And there's been companies that have actually paid people $50 or $100 if they completed their competent communicator and things like that. And I've seen that, and they've been very successful. People are involved in it. Very strong, successful clubs. It becomes part of the corporate development that they want their members to go through. So if it's not bought off by the management, then it's sort of counter to what the management is trying to accomplish. So, but there's a lot of minor little nuances. That's a whole other seminar. Okay.
We actually had 2 sessions with Pat Johnson last week. So Ashok, if you didn't attend, you can get the video of that, right?
No, I did attend that. I just
Oh, you
wanted
did
to see if
attend. Okay.
Lance had another view on that. Thank
Okay,
you.
sure, not a problem. And Lance, when you mentioned the past President's Council, my club, My Speak Toastmasters, we started with 2 members, active members in 2020. 2 active members. I was a club coach. Today we are 58 members, second on Marshall's world at the world level, number 2. And we used all these, most of these, what you've mentioned here, strategies and so on, and speaking spots. Instead of the past President's Council, what we have is called a leadership circle. And the leadership circle is the past executive team doesn't disappear. They remain in the leadership circle, and the new executive team joins the leadership circle, and the old executive council or members teach the new members what to do, so that they don't reinvent the wheel. So that is the purpose of the leadership circle. And I think every club should implement that. So
great idea. We make sure we have very thorough, what we call hat or job write-ups, job descriptions, or we call it like you wear different hats, right? You wear the hat of VPPR, the hat of VP membership. So we call them hat packs in our club, and here's how you do that job. And they're very, very thorough, and we make sure that each officer interns the next person onto the position so they know what's going on. But that's a great idea, and I love to see that. And those are the types of things where, again, we need to, as individuals, we need to figure out what it's going to take to make this thing successful. And what the Toastmasters program, as it's presented by Toastmasters International, is an imperfect program, and it needs a human element to pick it up. I compare Toastmasters a little bit to like Home Depot. You can go to Home Depot and buy all the supplies you need to build your house, but Home Depot isn't going to come build your house for it. You got to swing the hammer. The same thing's true with Toastmasters International. Toastmasters International will give you all the supplies you need to build your club, but you got to pick up the manuals. You got to put your energy into it. You've got to put your create into it. And that's the component that is usually missing, is the amount of create, dedication, and intention it takes to actually build a Toastmasters club. And with that, I'm going to go back full circle to the beginning. You develop soft skills to work with human beings, inspire and motivate human beings, bring them together, and accomplish things with human beings, which is a skill that is not taught hardly any place else on planet Earth. So from my standpoint, we should have 3 or 4 million people in Toastmasters every year. And
there's one word I use in my club, and that is connect. That's it. Connect, which means to connect with people you genuinely care about them. They know that you have their best interest at heart, and when they see that, they get inspired and they keep coming back with that. Here's a tricky question for you. Careful how you answer that one. Do you recommend all clubs go online?
It's up to the club. If your culture and you have a strong club that's not online, I think clubs need the autonomy to figure out what they need to do to be successful. I also feel districts should have the autonomy to feel what they need to do successful. If they want to have a fall speech contest, they should be able to have a fall speech contest, but I digress. But I don't think a club has to be online. I think one of the benefits of the whole COVID deal is it has forced us into online presentations, which is a great wave of the future. And it has given people an opportunity to develop their online speaking skills that they would have never had otherwise. But we've also lost the ability to stand in front of an audience and speak, because it's a completely different set of skills that we would have. But I think each club has its own culture. I think what we will do once we start to go back to live meetings again, and I'm in California, and that might be 2050, before we start doing that. But the way our states run, anyway, I digress once again. We will have a hybrid meeting because we have members now, like I said, from Florida, from New York, Colorado, from San Diego, from Bahrain, all over the world. So we want to keep that membership in. So we'll have some sort of a hybrid meeting. So
yeah, that's the reason why I asked you, is because you have members from everywhere. I mean, in my club, we have members from 14 different countries. We declare ourselves as online. Right from the beginning, we did that. So here's a question from Sharon D'Souza. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, actually, you're kind of talking about COVID, and that was my question. We obviously moved to a virtual meeting, lost a lot of members who didn't want the virtual meeting in the beginning, like a year, 2 years ago. So, and now I'm noticing, and I'm also mentoring another club, which is actually they're all doctors. And I noticed this fatigue, like people are just tired more, it's the depression about going through the pandemic, as well as now, everything is online, Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. So there's this fatigue. And you see that people now have lower energy compared to before when things were just starting out. It was different. So how do you address that? And how do you keep the membership motivated to continue, whether it's virtual, and stay with the club? Of course, like you, we are eventually planning to do hybrid as well, depending on provincial requirements. But the motivation, how do you keep them coming and committed to doing roles?
Vitamin C. No, I'm being facetious. There's I'm in the National Speakers Association here in the United States, and we say Zoom fatigue is another name for bad presentations. Okay, and what happens? I don't know how you're feeling today. I'm hoping you're sort of energized by my talk, but I put a lot of energy into talking on Zoom, and it's live communication, just like we have live people there. And a lot of people, when they they start looking at their camera instead of looking at the people on the screen, and you have this disconnect that happens with communication, and it starts to go into the sort of robotic fashion. And I'm trying to remember my speech, and we don't feel the energy with each other. The thing that keeps people alive, and I'll just come back to this when I talk about revive the dead, communication is a huge component to feeling alive. If you can communicate, you're much more alive than if you can't. And we can all know just emotionally, do we feel more alive or less alive when we're given a timeout and told to sit in the corner and look at the wall? We usually don't feel more alive than we did when we were jumping on the couch to give us the timeout. But also, purpose in life is a huge driver. If people are not allowed to achieve their purpose and they're not allowed to achieve their goals, they actually start to, that's a major cause of depression, because, and I do a deep dive in a lot of words. Happiness is not an emotion as much as it is a condition, and it's a condition of moving toward your goals and following your purpose in life. You are happy when you are doing that. And we can define the word, and I can break it all down. I'm not going to do that. But there's a whole program I do on what happiness really is. And it is, by the definition of the word, being inclined toward achieving something you want to achieve in your life. So we have to keep that achievement and that concept alive in a virtual environment. And it is challenging. Make no mistake, it is challenging. But I would say that one of the things that I have done, we just had a Toastmaster this last week. She was doing a 30-minute presentation with a panel discussion. And she sent an email out to 3 members to be on her panel. And she emails the vice president of education. And she says, I emailed them and I haven't heard back. I don't think I can do the speech this weekend. And the vice president of education emailed or texted me and said, she's not going to do the speech. She doesn't know what to do. I called her back and I said, why doesn't she call him on the phone and talk to him and see if they'll do it? And she called him, and the next half an hour, she goes, oh, I got all my things put together. But the reason I tell that story is we get so reliant to, I'm going to text or email somebody, or I'm going to only talk to them on Zoom. Call them. I meet people, for coffee. Let's meet at a Starbucks over here. I want to talk to you about something, and put the interaction. We put a little more effort back into it. But even just a phone call today is something almost exceptional compared to the amount of digital communication we get. So those are some of the things I would really recommend, is increase the amount of communication. And as Brahm was talking about, and I've mentioned, the care factor is just a really major component, that you really like having people around. And I always, it goes back to the speech I won the world championship with, which I really learned in building the club, which we built our club to the number 4 club 6 years before I won the world championship, was validating rightnesses in people and telling them how much you approve of them and how much you like having them around. And they love feeling that way, and they become more alive at that point. And, sometimes, and then I find I become more alive. If I'm having a really crappy day, sometimes I have some different people I sort of mentor. I'll call them up and they think, oh, it's so nice you called me today. And I'm going, I need to help somebody because I feel like crap today. So I'm calling, and I don't tell them that. I'm calling you because I feel bad and I need to talk to somebody and get them up. Then I'm going to feel like I did something good today. So it's really us learning again. Toastmasters is a microcosm of life. And what happens in Toastmasters is happening in life. There's nobody I've seen that has a problem in Toastmasters that is not having that same problem when they're out in life. You fix it in Toastmasters, you fix it in life. And that's really what we get a chance to do with people.
If I may add is, people go to meetings mechanically. It is speech, table topics, evaluation, and they fall asleep. And so if there's no connection, if there's no quality, if there's no fun, the why, why is the club existing? Why am I at this club? And is there a connection? And that really fires up people from Zoom burnout and all these conversations we have. Just the other day, we were having a conversation with Margaret Page, the international president, and she said, there's no Zoom burnout unless, people, go to work all day, they're on the computers, then they go home and they're on 6 hours, they're on Netflix. Why isn't there burnout, right? Flicking the channels and all that, or YouTube, whatever it is. But on Zoom, how burnout? Because speech, double topics, evaluation, and people fall asleep. And there's nothing that really calls to your heart. Why am I here? And what's that connection? So that's all I needed to add. Thanks.
Excellent, Ram.
Any other questions? I think we do have questions here. Let's see. Bhushan Raleigh. Hey, Bhushan, how are you? Are you there, Bhushan?
I'm good, man. Thank you. Hey,
Let's
Lance.
see if I can spotlight you. There we go.
Thanks. Lance, I had a question about clubs. I know many clubs nowadays, and even our club, we started with a vision and a kind of persona with an intent saying, okay, we build Zoom skills, or we build some other clubs start with some technology skills, or some start with entertainment skills. Is there like a persona or a vision that helps clubs succeed? And what happens tomorrow if that becomes a commonplace with many other clubs joining that? And does that evolve? What's your opinion?
Yeah, this comes back to what we were talking about, the whole concept of goals and purposes. And the example I would give with all of us is the month of December when we were kids. There was something we all looked forward to at the end of December, or, most of us, but it was, opening our presents under the Christmas tree. And if you remember what it was like, so all month long, we're excited about getting to the Christmas morning when we can open our presents. And then we have Christmas morning and we're super excited to get up. Then we open our presents, and afterwards there's sort of this letdown because we open our presents. Well, what we have to do is we have to put another goal out there because we just accomplished what we wanted. So what can happen, there's two things that can happen is that the goal can fail. In other words, we never get to open our presents and we go into apathy over opening our presents. The other one is we can open our presents and then we don't have that goal anymore. So we need to put the next goal out there. And I always say, growing up in Indiana where I did, it could be 55 degrees Fahrenheit at Christmas, or it could be 20 below zero Fahrenheit at Christmas. The weather was all over the board. So if I got a new bicycle and it was 20 below zero, I couldn't ride my bike. But if I got a new sled and it was 55 degrees, I couldn't go sled. So I wanted to put a goal out to go use my sled or ride my bike. And then that was the next thing I'm looking forward to. So with that, let's just look at that as a club. Put a goal out there for the club on so many people getting through a speech level, and you're going to work on the next level. Can you make it to your level 4 now? We want to back you up from that. And if you do that, this is what it means for the club. Or what do you personally want to get out of it? What do you personally want to achieve in Toastmasters? What skill set or competency do you want to build by being in Toastmasters? And that's where I'll talk to people and say, you're doing great. What is it you want to accomplish? How can we help you accomplish your goals and become more competent at living your life? And then you see the person, they now have a purpose for doing their speeches because it's taking them towards something they want to accomplish in their life. And that's again, making it personal and tying it to living. I'm going to repeat what I'd said earlier, but being a Toastmaster is not about being a great Toastmaster. Being a Toastmasters, it's about using Toastmasters to be great in life. And that's what I'm always trying to push people. What do they want to be great in life for? Let's work on those skill sets here.
But wouldn't it work both ways, right? For example, you ask the members what they want to be and define the club where it needs to go. But at the same time, members join the club because they realize that the club is going in a certain direction and they're able to learn from the club.
Totally. I mean, we get more members in our club that want to be a member after they hear the speech evaluation, the coaching. Because they hear the speeches, they thought that was great. Then they saw the coaching on it, and they go, holy smokes. They realize, look at the development I can get here with the feedback I get. And that when they see that, but you create a club culture with certain, I've talked about this, certain components. Part of my culture is you do a speaking level a year. Now it's you do 10 speeches a year. We always maintain the fact of the number of people, we're always 10 out of 10 on our DCP points. And, this is part of the club culture that we had on what we expect of our membership. If you're going to be if you're going to be a member, you're going to be active, you're going to do the different roles. This is part of the culture. And then you can tie that into your personal development, and you're going to use that culture to help the person get to personal development.
Interesting. Thank you.
So culture comes first because there's a club culture, right? That the member was drawn to. And so that connection should be on why the member wants to join this club and what the club provides. And there's a mesh between the two dreams. And that's what is magic. Right.
We had the question earlier on, do you let people sign up by themselves or do you run a structure? That's a little bit the same thing. We have a club culture that's going to help you develop your skills to achieve the things you want in your life. That culture is what does it. If you don't have that, the person comes in and what is it you're joining? What is the channel I'm on? I'm not on a specific channel.
Yeah. Correct. Lance, thank you very much. Before we say goodbye to you, I would like to ask Myrna Bath, our district director, to say a few words. Myrna.
Lance, always a pleasure to have you speak to our members. It's always great to see your smiling face. You have such energy that you impart that energy back to us in all your presentations. You give us hope, you give us excitement, you give us information to grow on, and it is much appreciated that our CGD Brahm and his team has been able to have you here this evening. So thank you very much and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Lance, thank you. Thank you for being such a sport. Thank you for coming. When you do these things, Lance, what you're doing is you're changing the world, one person at a time or a crowd at a time. So thank you very much. It's a privilege to have you here. Much appreciated.
Just as a final note, I'm not trying to self-promote. I've got a video I send out once a week on a newsletter. I've got speaking tips on my on my website. I just put it in the chat. If you want to go sign up for those things, you're welcome to. I'd love to stay in touch with you.
It's in the chat again, ladies and gentlemen, and I reposted that as the very last line in the chat. So please do go to Lance's website and see what tools and the skills you can pick up from there. And I've been to his website. It's great to visit. Thank you very much. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.